we go. Greetings, ladies and germs. Kevin Sullivan here, kpsbooks.net. That's my website. Strings and Pages is where you're at now. I make it so confusing. I don't know why I do that. But anyway, this is where I've been for a minute. I've actually been away for a minute, so it's good to be back. Been traveling the seven seas. Search of fame and fortune. But now, back in the lair. Chapter 18 of the Rings of Hydra series. The Great Escape. That's this bad boy right here. If you love dystopian epic stuff, this is a good one. Adventure, family, betrayal, trust. It's all in here, man. But we're on chapter 18, so, if you want from the beginning, you know what to do. Just go on back in that little channel. And listen, I'm kind of messing with the settings of the speed of this now. So if I'm a little bit quirky with the screen, I do apologize for that. But let's just get into it and see what happens in Chapter 18 of The Great Escape. Chapter 18. Playing coy was the hardest part of the following work week, and not just for the Hagens. There were some on the site who hadn't been at the meeting in the green billiards room at the Axe. They were not part of the plan either. Nothing was hidden from them, as far as Breezy Curve going to other owners. But nearly half of the workers were in the dark. Only the inner circle knew of these plans. David and Joe were the tip of the spear, with Reynolds and crew making up most of the manpower. The exact number of people included in the plan, that was unclear. At first glance, it seemed there were only a dozen workers, including David and Joe. But a good portion of these workers had family. When they were considered, the number reached more like 25. It was a big number to escape with, but not big enough to warrant too much attention. At least, this is what they told themselves. What did the domain care about 24 salty workers? Only time would tell. The ball was in motion, and the Hagens weren't about to let anything get in their way. There was one instance, though, that caught David off guard. "Hold up a second, Hagen," a voice said, just as work had ended. David turned around when he heard his name. It was Evans. And seeing him caused a startle. "Evans," he said, "how's it going?" Just then Joe arrived, exchanged a glance with his brother. "Should I stick around?" Joe asked. No, get in the cab," David said. "I'll be right in." Joe did as he was asked, leaving his brother just outside the job site. Evans gave him a wave and a smile as he approached a composed David. "I don't mean to impose on you, David," Evans said. "You have some time? I'd like to talk with you." David tried to read the enforcer. He couldn't. He also couldn't help wondering if there was some way the plan had been made its way to Evans. That would be bad. He felt like he was shaking and hoped Evans couldn't see it. "Talk?" David said. "You mean here?" Evans' look was stone cold. "No," he said. "But don't worry where. I'll get us there." David looked to his brother, who was in the back seat of the hover cab with the door still open, who had just made a shrugging gesture. Sure," David said. "Let me just fill Joe in." He walked to the cab, leaving Evans behind. "Hey," David said. "Get home safe, Joe. I'll catch up with you there." Joe's eyes filled with dread, which he did his best to mask. "Okay, brother," Joe said, then under his breath, "What's going on?" With a quick furrow of the brow, David said, "I'll see you at home. Tell Mel I love her, and I'll see her soon." He shut the door before Joe could say anything else, then walked back to the GAD soldier waiting with his arms crossed against another hovering vehicle. "Thought you guys always flew," David asked. "Not when we're going to have company," Evans said. "Get in." The car was flat gray. No GAD lettering or signs of any kind on the vehicle. Both men sat in front, and the car slid smoothly down the Solar Road, headed in the same direction as home, though there were endless other possible destinations in between. "You must be pretty pissed," Evans said. David got the feeling that this wasn't a good visit. Evans hadn't smiled at him once, which was completely different from any other meeting they'd had. "Well," David said. "You have every right to be pissed," Evans said. "I'm just checking up on you, David. Make sure you don't do anything drastic." David wondered if he knew, and if so, how. Yet he decided to avoid being led into talking too much, and to be as vague as possible. Evans was right, though. He did have every right to be pissed. "Yeah," David said. "Yeah, I'm angry. Here we are working our asses off, and for what? To give it all away to some rich jerks? And we're hardly even getting paid." Evans rubbed his chin and listened. He didn't ask any more questions. "I'll tell you what," he said. "I'm going to take us somewhere where we can have a real conversation." David had no idea what this meant. He could only nod and sit back, enjoy the view of the buildings increasing in size and the colors of the evening on the nicer section of the second ring. "30 minutes went by. Neither man said much, and the suspense became a burden. David carried it well, however. Even as the car pulled away from the commercial cluster and into the governmental district, he kept his cool. If Evans was trying to break him into spilling his plans, he was going to have to do a lot more than take a ride. This was getting more suspicious by the turn, though. The car finally rested in an obvious GAD compound, as they crossed 3 armed barricades at various points. David began to believe he was being arrested, perhaps being brought somewhere for an interrogation. They would have to rip his beard out of his face before he talked. This building was impressive. 5 stories of stainless steel cubing made up the shiny box they were entering. Evans scanned in and opened the door for David. "Right this way, Dave," he said. The white interior was blinding compared to the dark gray and pink of the outside evening. The lights were very bright, and he was surrounded by guns. Bang! Bang! Zip, zip, bang! David jumped as he realized he was entering a firing range. He swallowed the lump in his throat as 2 other gel suits turned and looked him up and down as he walked past. Clear plastic walls separated each shooter along the line. The slick floor looked like it was freshly poured. The air inside this place was soot-free. Aside from the blinding pulse rounds and noise from the exploding targets on the far end, the place was surprisingly pleasant. "This way, David," Evans said. He was brought right back to the moment. This was something to walk through and impress, perhaps intimidate him with, before going underneath the hot lights. It was working. David's hands were already sweating. "We're at the end," Evans said. He led David to the end of the firing line, where he was told to wait. Evans went to the wall and pulled a rifle from a rack, along with a handgun. Then he walked face to face with David. He smiled. David took a deep breath. Evans said, "I just thought you might want to blow off some steam." The puzzle came together. He wasn't here to be interrogated at all. Evans had no idea of his plan. The man was trying to do something nice, something unexpected. David was here to shoot. The weight of the world lifted from David's shoulders, and he took a deep breath again and smiled. Evans started cracking up. "What did you think this was, Dave?" he asked. "You didn't think you were here to be the target, did you?" More laughter. David chuckled. "I honestly had no idea what to think. But whatever I was thinking, this is a good outcome." "Can I actually shoot that thing?" "I have no idea." "I know you don't, man," Evans said. "Come on now. Here, let me show you how this thing works." "You're not going to get in trouble for this, are you?" David asked. Evans gave a goofy look and said, "You're not planning on stealing one and going on a rampage with it, right?" It was a joke of a question, yet David couldn't find the laughter to complement it. That didn't matter. Evans figured David was simply stunned by the whole experience, which wasn't a miscalculation. "No, man," Evans said. "Don't worry about that. Come on over here." "Take this and hold it like this," Evans said, guiding David along. "See this? That's the ammo. You have to turn it on like this. Yeah, just like that. This one's the safety. Turn it off like this. Good. Now look through. Yeah, that part. Look through to aim. There's your target over there. You got it? When you're ready, just fire away." David pulled the trigger. The end of the pulse rifle lit up like a fistful of lightning, and the barrel threw the same, at nearly the speed of light, to the back of the room. What David saw wasn't the actual round, rather its interaction with the environment around it. Heat and friction so strong it left a ghost trail in the air. His target exploded in the same instant that he felt the thud in his shoulder. Boom! David couldn't help but let out a howl of excitement, while Evans laughed at the top of his lungs. "There you go, man. Nice shot," Evans said. "How did that feel?" David looked at Evans and gave his first genuine smile of the evening. "That felt good, Evans. That felt really good." was late. By the time David entered his cube. "What the hell happened?" Joe asked the moment he did. "We were worried sick." "Easy, brother," David said. "Not what you think at all. Not what I thought either. He took me out to blow off some steam with some target practice." "Target practice?" Joe asked, stunned. "He's a friend," David said. "That's gonna make this whole thing just a little harder to do." He looked to his family, his wife and baby, his brother Joe, even Jen, who was spending the night again. "But don't worry," he said. "He knows nothing about it." And we're still on. Chapter 18, folks. Great Escape, Rings of Hydra, Great Escape. Thank you for your time, ears, and attention. Be good out there. I'll see you on the page.
kpsbooks.net